In this video, we are going to look at the Jaenisch Gambit against the Ruy Lopez, together with some important third move sidelines for black. We will focus on practical move orders, typical tactical ideas, and the most reliable ways for white to fight for an advantage. First, we will cover the sidelines, and then we will return to the main Jaenisch Gambit. Bishop c5 is the classical defense, one of the oldest continuations. Sensing there is no immediate danger to e5, black brings out their bishop to its most active square. However, this does not address the long-term threat to e5, and while black's bishop is on c5, it may find itself kicked by white's c3, d4 maneuver. Therefore, even though bishop c5 appears to be a sensible developing move, it is only a minor sideline today, and more common in amateur games. c3 is the sharpest response. White intends to expand in the center straight away with c3 and d4. Black can prepare for the move. Pawn takes c6 and protect his knight. A 6 is too early. Since white quickly takes control of the center, first, black need to bring the bishop back prophylactically, so that d4 doesn't come with a tempo, and can hold up white's advance with d5. However, white reaches an ideal isolated pawn position. With active piece play. Fourth 5 is the Cordell Gambit. Black offers their f-pawn for white's e-pawn. This resembles the Schliemann after third f5, though it is not as sharp. Declining the gambit is the stronger riposte. Black takes the e4 pawn. And after the exchanges, we end up in a noticeably pleasant position. First, we weaken the kingside. Black took the knight in the Smyslov-Vidmar game in 1946. And white gained a significant advantage with a pawn lead and a better position. Black can simply defend his pawn. But after simple development, white is doing better. The e4 pawn is more weak than dangerous, and there's a very stable e5 square. Knight f6 is the most common response. White continues d4 and achieves a big center with tempo. E-pawn takes d4 is already a mistake, because white can quickly activate their pieces. And black's pieces are poorly placed. Kovalenko was even able to take advantage of this in a rapid game. A better option with black is not to give up the e5 square. We're also launching our play on the queenside and threatening to take to bishop. Queen c1 is a useful move to prevent black's g5 move. We'll place our rook in its usual spot, after which black has a few options. First, after e-pawn takes d4, we'll not lose the pawn, of course. And we have some advantage because of black's pawn structure. Black can avoid the bad pawn structure with knight b8. We bring our bishop back, then activate the knight, and continue the play on the queenside. bg4 is another logical option. We protect the f3 knight, and with g5, black can win a pawn. But the weaknesses on the queen and king side provide good compensation. This knight d4 move may be more common at lower levels, but we've also seen examples of it in some grandmaster games, like Carlsen playing it against Saric in the 2014 Olympiad. Rapport, Morozevich, and other grandmasters have also tried it out, mostly in rapid games. With this knight maneuver, black gives up the defense of e5 and instead counterattacks white's bishop. Knight takes d4 is almost always played, and after e-pawn takes da4, black will have gained some space with the pawn on d4, which is not so easy for white to dislodge, which will inconvenience white's queenside development. However, this comes at the cost of doubled pawns and falling behind on their own development. White usually castles and closes the center with d3. Castling is the main move, after which black has two main approaches. Bishop c5, developing the kingside and supporting the advanced pawn, or c6, gaining tempo on the bishop and supporting d5 to expand in the center. We bring our bishop back to the most active spot. We protect the pawn and prevent the d5 move. And we're going to try to get rid of the d4 pawn. Black has the option to sacrifice the pawn and play d5, but we'll be better with the extra pawn. After the simple exchange, we're gaining a strong center. The most common move, knight g4, with the threat of queen h4. We attack the knight. And the d3 move is important. Otherwise, black would take it with his pawn and slow down our development. Black can take the bishop. And after a few logical developing moves, white has clear advantage with more space and more active pieces. Bishop c5 is most common. Black is lagging behind in development, so would like to prioritize getting their minor pieces out. It would be particularly good to develop their kingside pieces next, as this will help them to castle short. Our bishop is now better positioned on c4 and is threatening bishop takes fe7, followed by queen h5 check. Black protects the bishop. And white was really active in the Dolmatov-Tukmakov game. Now, the plan is pushing the f-pawn. Finally, let's look at the Jaenisch Gambit. The first thing to know about the Jaenisch Gambit, aka the Schliemann Defence, is that it is not a gambit. Despite the apparent similarity to the Latvian Gambit, black's knight on c6 changes everything. Black's pawn on f5 is threatening, f-pawn takes e4, so white should choose a move that helps to defend e4. I like the knight c3 move more than the d3 or capturing the f5 pawn. Black's main move is f-pawn takes e4, but let's also look at the two alternatives. We're not giving up the bishop, and now the take on d4 isn't so good with the knight on c3. In a game against Cotronius, black developed the knight first. And tried to move d5. But by taking advantage of the king stuck in the center, we can open up the center with a nice d4 move. We have several threats. For example, we can take back e4 with the rook because of the queen f7 mate. And in case of d-pawn takes c4, then fg5. Black more often starts with c6, then protects the e5. Since now our king is safe, we can take the d4. And we prevent black from castling later with the take on g8. White has more than just compensation for the pawn. Black can increase the pressure on e4. Now we take the pawn. Black can push the e-pawn. We place the knight in an unusual spot, but from here it defends the f5 pawn really well. This position might remind us of the king's gambit with reversed colors. The plan is the same here too. We're trying to open the center against the opponent's weak king. In the main line, you need to know a long, roughly forced line, but then we end up in a very favorable endgame. Nowadays, knight f6 is starting to become more popular than the d5 move. We simply protect the knight, and e2 is a good place for the queen. Black is only now playing d5, and he gains a pretty strong center, but the disadvantage in piece development causes problems. We immediately attack the center. One possible move for black is to push the pawn. And we're still trying to play against the center. The black one has to castle to the queen side. And finally, an exciting position arose in a Motilev-Paravian blitz game, where black can attack too. But by placing our bishop on f4, we can't have any big problems. We also attack e4, and we will start an action on the queen side as well. It's more common for black to try to continue the gambit. It's really important that we don't let open the f-file. If black goes for the pawn on e6, we just castle on the queen side, and we'll have a good attacking chances on the king side. Black can still try to open the f-file. Of course, we don't take the knight. Black attacks our bishop and gets the bishop pair. But white's position is better, since, like in the previous variation, we can have a really good attack on the weak king side after a long castling. From here starts the forced line, where neither side can really make mistakes. Black should not take the c6, because white has the strong intervening move queen h5. Queen d5 meet with c4. And there will be qh5 again. Black's only dangerous move is queen g5. We protect the bishop. The g2 threat is just an illusion, since black can't take it because of the queen h5 check. Black defends the e4. In the case of king d8, we could capture the c8, and if black plays c6, we could capture the c6 pawn. The best option is bishop d7. f4 is a very nice way to defend g2. If black takes the pawn, we develop with tempo. We move the knight. Black can take the c2, and now, thanks to the pawn advantage, we can easily play for a queen trade. Black protects the c7 with long castle. And finally, the plan that seems best is to start to push the pawns on the queen side. You can find the full PGN material on ChessGuin.com. The link is in the description.